Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome to Marty Time TV. I think it's Tuesday. It's always great to check in with AJ Cassavell in Sacramento. Looking forward to finding out whether or not he packed the beer I asked him to get me from Chicago, and also what the suds are in Sacramento. AJ, how are you today?
I'm good. I didn't. It was my suitcase was too full of warm clothes from Chicago. I only had one carry-on. I don't check bags as often as I can. I avoid checking bags. So you'll have to get it at some point. Gumball Head's a great beer. I only had one of them while I was in Chicago, but I apologize for that.
Only one. That's a failed trip. There's a lot to get to before
Well,
we
it
get
wasn't only
started.
one beer. I'll say that.
Yesterday. Okay. Oh, one
Just
beer
one
brand is what
Gumball
you're
Head.
saying.
Yeah.
One gumball head. All right, AJ, a lot to get to with the Padres today. You know, the latest on Jackson Merrill, the hamstring issue, some news, if you can, on you, Darvish, and Joe Musgrove. But before I do, I addressed this with Padres fans yesterday and the people watching Marty Time TV that I had somebody from Spectrum come out to check my Wi-Fi to figure out why I'm crashing. No joke, averaging 48 timeouts per day. The average consumer averages 30. So they have new cables, and they had me reposition the plugs. So we'll see if that's going to work. So if there's any issues, I apologize. Number two, my nephew is home from school today. He's sick. So there might be something strange happening behind the scenes. I apologize in advance. It's one of those, it's just a day, right? So anyways.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's go. AJ Cassavell, where to start? I'll tell you this: when the Padres lineup came out yesterday, and there was no Jackson Merrill in the lineup, I know a lot of Padres fans were concerned, and rightfully so. This kid does not want to take a game off, an inning, an at bat, anything. What do we know on Jackson Merrill?
Yeah, it sounds like the Padres don't think it's too serious. I guess today is kind of up in the air. They are facing a lefty. If you're going to give Jackson Merrill an extra day, maybe that would be the day to do so. You got a day game tomorrow, so night game, day game. Give him one extra day. I wouldn't expect this to linger. Obviously, Padre fans want to see Jackson Merrill as often as possible. Maybe he'll be available to pinch hit or something like that. But I don't think, at least having seen Jackson last night after the game and seen the spirits that he was in, it sounds like he'll be fine in relatively short order. And I mean, Padres, Jackson Merrill's obviously a crucial player, but they looked pretty good last night without him. And I guess we'll see when he's back. It doesn't seem to be anything that Padre fans should be too concerned about.
Okay, that's good. I know that Mike Schultz was a little bit clipped when he was asked about him not being the lineup yesterday. So nothing, just precautionary. And the timing is right. Now, he said he wasn't sure the reason as to what caused the hamstring. Do you think the cold was a factor, or do we just really don't know?
Yeah, we asked that yesterday, and the answer was we don't know. I think Mike Schultz just generally doesn't like talking about injured players, which is his right. But I think if this were something more serious, there would have been another outfielder here or something like that. So I guess it's certainly possible the cold was an issue. Jackson Merrill looked pretty good in the cold, hitting that home run to straightaway center through the wind at Wrigley on Sunday. But if he's been playing through this for a couple days, you might as well knock it out now and get it right for the rest of the season.
How different. It's so funny. It's remarkable that after just one full year for Jackson Merrill and the Bigs, how much he just impacts the lineup. And I know it's one game. The Padres found a way to win versus the A's yesterday, but just how impressive how much does he impact the Padres lineup? I know you're not looking forward to isn't the right word. It's different when you have Brandon Lockridge out there, right? Or Jason Hayward, just the way that he really changes the lineup. It's just remarkable to me how much he just impacts their everyday lineup.
Yeah, I think it's more like obviously he's an outstanding player, but he also kind of embodies what the Padres have done over the last year with some of the comebacks they've had and some of the competitive spirit and some of the fight back they've done. Because if you look at some of his biggest hits, his biggest home runs, they tend to come in those kinds of games. They tend to come either as the spark, as it was on Sunday. They're down by 4, he hits the 2-run shot, or it comes late in the game after they've rallied back and kind of need that push to get him over the hump. So it's like he's a clearly outstanding player, but he also is the kind of player who in that moment enjoys that moment, wants to be in that moment, and wants to be the kind of guy that delivers that. So yeah, it's clearly a different lineup. I think it also, like, right now, we talked about this last week, I think, how the bottom of the Padres lineup, which is an issue, but I don't think it's that big of an issue because of what the top 6 are capable of. Like, if you start losing guys from that top 6, then it becomes an issue. Then that for me is when it becomes more of a question mark. But a couple games here and there for a guy. I mean, guys are going to miss games. It's a long season, so I don't think it's that big of a deal. So I guess like the Padres need Jackson Merrill healthy because of what he brings intangibly and because of what he brings tangibly, and defensively and just kind of across the board in terms of what he means to the clubhouse.
I'm glad you brought up the bottom of the lineup. That was actually a topic that I had with yesterday with Darnay Tripp from NBC7, because I asked him, after, just the series in Chicago, I mean, we already know what the deficiencies are, right? Depth and starting pitching. You can never, ever have enough starting pitching, the bottom of the lineup, perhaps the catching situation. Do you think the Padres are getting more or less than they expected from their current catching tandem?
Probably more offensively. I think defensively they've gotten about what they've expected.
Okay.
But the Padres didn't expect much offensively from these guys. Like, they don't have much of a track record, and especially recently. And Elias Diaz has some track record of hitting, but he's not that hitter anymore. But like I said, they're fine with the catching tandem being what it is because they want those guys to be working with their pitching staff. And like you said, the pitching staff is. The starting pitching staff is the biggest question mark on the roster right now.
Yes.
And so any way you can boost that group, any way you can give them an advantage, if it means you're putting catchers out there that will give those guys a chance to succeed, well, then you can sacrifice a little bit of offense because you've got Tatis, Arise, Machado, Merrill, Cronenworth, Bogarts, and you can rely on those guys to bring the offense and let your catchers hit in the 9-hole. And then I think you can have some fair questions about left field and DH, but catching I think the Padres kind of drew this up understanding that they wouldn't be getting much offensively from their catchers. Again,
if we're talking about needing more production from the Padres catchers, then there's something that went really, really wrong with the top three, with the guys that are 1 through 5. So, hopefully we never have that conversation. By the way, speaking of catchers, when the Guardians were in town that first homestand, I just couldn't help but think, you know what? Austin Hedges would have been the perfect catcher for this Padres team, right? He's a great clubhouse guy, popular in that clubhouse, great behind the plate. And then it doesn't matter if he hits 120 with, 1 or 2 home runs. And of course he homered into the Western Metal Supply building, right? Naturally.
Yeah, he threw it back. It was, it was fun to see him. That's kind of exactly what the Padres are looking for. Like they want guys who good in the clubhouse, command a pitching staff, defensively are solid. I think a lot of the misconception about what the Padres have at catcher is that is the defensive metrics. That's not even necessarily what they're looking for. They want guys that know the pitchers that they have and can call a game and can work through a game and can be on the same page as Ruben Niebla and implement a game plan, which is tougher to do now than it used to be because of the pitch clock. And so I think that's where the Padres focus is there. And these guys, they would like for them to hit, and at times this season they have hit, and the Padres will take that.
Okay, I'm glad you brought the starting pitching. We'll go ahead and start there. Kyle Hart and Nick Pivetta both struggled this weekend in Chicago. What did you see from? We'll start with Nick Pivetta first.
Yeah, Pivetta, it was just I give him more of a pass because he was so good and so efficient in the first game. I just don't think he was. Strike one was an issue, and falling behind like in 1-1 counts. Like he wasn't putting himself in the best position to succeed. Whereas in the first game, he was ahead of hitters. He was on the attack the whole entire time. He wasn't missing by a whole lot, I don't think. And there were some really long, kind of tough Cubs at bats that dragged out foul balls. Like, I don't think he was too far off from having a solid outing. I just think there were some things that he knows he needs to clean up and maybe just be in the strike zone a little bit more. The conditions were what they were. I can't imagine they were easy to pitch in. Nick Pivetta, what is it now? He threw 7 in his first game, 3 in his second. Yes. If you're averaging 5 innings in April from your number 4 spot in the rotation, that's fine. You'd like better than what you got on Saturday. You'll take every time what he gave you the previous Sunday. Kyle Hart, I think, is the bigger question mark because I think his mechanics were just out of whack in that first inning. Nick Pivetta was missing on the margins. Kyle Hart was kind of missing a little bit bigger than that, and he was solid in that first outing. He needs to be the kind of guy that commands the ball because his stuff's not going to overpower you. He needs to be a step ahead of you thinking, and he needs to be He needs to throw strikes when he needs to. He needs to throw it just off the plate when he needs to. He needs his balls to be swingable pitches, pitches that guys are going to swing at, and they weren't on Sunday. And so it's only one inning.
Right.
He's going to get another chance against, I believe, the Rockies this weekend. But it needs to be better than it was in Chicago.
Can't overreact, can't underreact to any one outing. But the thing that's interesting with, especially a guy like Kyle Hart, who won that job towards the end, although he missed some time with the flu in spring training, when we spoke to Mike Schultz and Ruben Niebla in spring about, who's going to be the number 5 guy, of course, you had an extra opening with Darvish on the IL. They said that they could see Kyle Hart either in the rotation or a guy that you might have in middle relief. What would the Padres prefer for him? What's his stuff better suited for?
I think his stuff is pretty well suited for, I guess, the role that he's. I guess if they had 5 starters that were better than Kyle Hart, they would use him as a reliever. There are questions about. I know Stephen Kolek was the other guy in the competition for that job. Yes. He hasn't started, I think, in 2.5 years, and so they kind of want to get him just on that routine going forward.
I thought he was a front runner for that role. I really thought that was his job really to lose in spring training.
He was really good, and there's reason to believe his stuff will play probably better than Hart's and Vasquez's because it's almost the same pitch mix as Michael King's, and he's not the same pitcher as Michael King, but it's his stuff's really good. He just hasn't done a lot of it. He hasn't done a lot of starting. Last season when he was in the bullpen, he was coming in and throwing fastball cutter. Fastball, whatever pitch he was lined up to throw against whatever opponent, whatever part of the order he was facing. He didn't get a chance to use his whole arsenal last year. So he hasn't had a chance to really do that. So I guess I could see him at some point this season, if he continues to pitch well in the minors, at some point coming up and filling that role. And then maybe Kyle Hart's a long man out of the bullpen and pretty useful long man because I think he can pitch. He can pitch. What a simple statement. But he has an idea of what he's doing out there. But we'll see. We'll see kind of how it plays out. The Padres need Darvish back. That's kind of what this all comes down to.
You're leading me to my very next question. Yes, there we go. What sort of update do we have on Darvish?
He's playing catch right now, but I think it's been upped a little bit. I believe 100.
I'm sorry, Jay. Is he at Petco Park or is he with the team right now?
He's at Petco Park right now.
Okay.
And he's playing catch there. I think it got up to 150 feet, which when you hear 150, the next step is getting off a bullpen mound. So I would imagine that comes in the coming days. Darvish gets off the bullpen mound, and then 2 or 3 of those, and you start talking about rehab appearances. I would expect. The Padres aren't going to rush Darvish back, but he's also the kind of guy. I think we saw it last year where he came back when he was only built up for 4 innings or whatever. I think they understand that he has pitched long enough and his stuff's good enough and he knows it well enough that he's not going to need so many rehab appearances. I think he'll maybe need a shorter rehab stint than most guys. And if he's limited to a pitch count in his first start or 2, the Padres are fine with that because they'll be getting Darvish in action as opposed to what they've gotten from the back end of their rotation.
I know Preller, Niebla, Schultz will never give out timelines, but what do you think is somewhat real? What's a window for Darvish to return?
I think this. So if he's at 150 and then he throws a couple bullpen sessions and rehab, I would early May. That seems to me like what it would be. I would still he's not going to throw no rehabs, or at least he's going to have to be in some sort of live setting, whether that's in Peoria at the complex or whether that's at an affiliate. He's going to have to build up in some capacity in that way. But late April, early May, based on what he's doing right now, if he doesn't have any setbacks, would seem to be the likeliest timeline. And if he's only throwing 60 pitches in that debut and then 75 and then 90 and then he's good to go, I think the Padres would be fine with that.
Okay, that's good news. All right, Joe Musgrove is with the team. And before I get to my next Joe Musgrove question, I am so mad at myself. I'm kicking myself for not starting the show, thanking our great sponsor at Hamul, the all-new Hamul Casino Resort, the Players Place, responsible for this show, and I'm so grateful to them. Again, the all-new Hamul because, resort, the player's place. All right, Joe Musgrove with the team. He's going to travel with his team pretty much most of the season, which is good news. I mean, he gives great energy. He acts as an extra coach, pitching coach, if you will, for this team. Joe Musgrove threw yesterday. Can you tell us just what he was able to do yesterday? His demeanor. It's not the same expectation, of course, with Yu Darvish. The man had Tommy John surgery. If he gets it back at all this season, even in postseason, hopefully, then that is remarkable. But what's the latest on Joe Musgrove?
Yeah, he was pumped yesterday, and rightfully so. Like, I think, like, we know Joe. He's a pretty thoughtful guy, and he's not shy to like hold his thoughts from talking with us. And like, it meant a lot to him. He hasn't been able to throw a baseball for 6 months, and he finally got to do that. Granted, he just threw it lightly, 25 times, I think was the number. Nick Pivetta was his catch partner. Like, it was a pretty simple thing, and that's gonna be his next several weeks. Is just gonna be playing catch three times a week moving forward. So he was pumped about it. I think rightly so. I think he's been really eager to be part of this. He's been on the road with the team. A lot of guys aren't. A lot of guys don't have to be. Like, he wouldn't, like, it's not really expected of a guy.
Right.
It's probably easier to rehab if you're not traveling all over the country and putting the team's schedule, lining that up with your rehab schedule. That's hard to do. Musgrove wanted it that way. I think a lot of times teams will be like, no, we don't necessarily need that. But Musgrove brings enough value. I think he sits in pretty much every one of the game planning meetings, and he does his own scouting homework. And I also know that, like, he's not the kind of guy who will do that and then give his opinion just kind of unprompted. Like, he kind of knows the feel of how to be in those meetings. Like, it's not his start, but if he has advice to give and you want the advice, he'll give it. So he's it's kind of perfect setting for him because he wants to be a part of all this and he can be that pitching coach. But he said yesterday, his rehab comes first, and it was cool to see him throwing, and it was even cooler to see what it meant to Joe. That's
awesome. That's good news. It's great having him around. All right. I know players will always tell us, AJ, they don't read the paper. They don't read the comments. They don't read anything that's written about them. They don't pay attention to lists. Last week, I spoke to Alvin Gonzalez of ESPN. His colleague Buster Olney had a list of the top 100 players in baseball. And Fernando Tatis was ranked 15th. I'm like, wow, there's 15 players that are better than Tatis in Major League Baseball. Of course, he has to prove it by staying healthy. Did Tatis see that list before he hit that absolute moonshot nearly out of the stadium last night?
He might have. He's also just really good in general. So
he's decent. He's okay.
I always appreciate the players who tell me, and Will Myers did this a lot. He's just like, yeah, I read it. Yeah, I saw what you said. Okay, you're telling the truth. I think that was I like, if Fernando Tatis Jr. is healthy, he's not the 15th best player. That has to be the only reason behind that, because I mean, he did miss time last year. He's missed time in the past for various reasons, and if he's on the baseball field, like, how many guys are you taking over him? Like a couple,
0.
maybe.
I would tell you.
And
I would.
Maybe. I mean, honestly, maybe it's 0. Maybe if we're playing a baseball game tomorrow and we're drafting rosters and everyone in baseball is available, and you want to take Fernando Tatis Jr. number 1 overall.
Yep.
I can't fault you for that. Like, he's that good of a player. He's that talented of a player. He brings that much in terms of energy, in terms of what he can do on the base paths defensively, like all the tools he has. But if he can prove it over a whole season, I think this year, like, also, you look at, like, the home run is majestic and he's hitting the ball hard, and even his outs are like hard line drives. I think if, like, the biggest thing for me is looking at his chase rate and his walk rate. Like, he's walked more times than he's struck out. He's chasing lower than he has at any point in the rest of his career. If that continues, like, he's going to win the MVP, because that was, if there was a flaw, if there was a nit to pick with his game, it was that Tatis maybe expanded the strike zone a little too much and got himself out. He's not doing that this year, and you're kind of seeing the results. He's hitting the baseball over buildings, and he's running wild on the base paths.
He gets on base. It's as good as a double. If he's a walk or a single, he stretches to double. He finds ways to score. And there's so few players who can just take the extra base the way that he does. I know that the whole lineup construction thing is always interesting, but just with what Tatis can do, all the different ways he can beat you and be so disruptive on the base pass, he's locked in. He's locked in the leadoff spot, correct?
Yeah, I think so. Like, how can you ask for much more than what you've gotten from him? He's
Right.
been so good in that leadoff spot, and it kind of took us all by surprise on that. Maybe not the first day of the season because they were facing Chris Sale, and you think, oh, a righty versus Chris Sale, get Tatis that extra at bat. But the second day of the season, when he's still there, I think that's when everyone's eyebrows were raised, and we're like, okay, like this is. I don't think anyone's eyebrows were raised in a negative way. Just more like this is interesting. This is maybe this. If Tatis, I think we saw on opening day too, he stole 2 bases.
Mm-hmm.
If that version of Tatis is out there. And I asked, like, if Tatis were limited, like he were last season on the base paths, like, would he still be in the top spot right now? And I think I got kind of like, maybe not, because that's a part of it too. Like, if he's just a slugger that can't run the bases, and obviously he can run, but the Padres weren't letting him run wild because of what he was dealing with his leg. But if that's all a part of it, like, I don't know how you can. And he's walking, and he's working his way on base. That's about as good as it gets in the leadoff spot.
AJ Cassavell, I see you steering up the Padres fans yesterday. They have the absolute best record in baseball. Let's go. How sustainable is this, man? You mentioned that you mentioned the 2 magical years if you're a Padres fan, right? 84, 98, the 2 World Series team. They started off 9-2, and now how about these 2025 Padres?
Yes, it's the only other times it's happened in franchise history, 9-2, and it's the best record in baseball, best record in the NL West, obviously. And that was kind of the chatter of the clubhouse last night after the game, was because it was like the first time all season the Dodgers and Giants had lost. And we asked a few guys that on the same day, we asked a few guys, like, what is it like being in this division? And they all kind of love it. They're just like, all right, like we know we're good and we want the competition. I don't know if that's necessarily the take I would have. Like, it'd be nice if I were playing on a team to be running away with the division, but also like that's not the mindset you want if you're in the NL West. You want the mindset where, like, bring on the Dodgers, bring on the Giants, bring on the Diamondbacks. So I think they all think it's the best division in baseball, and they all think that like there's a long. How sustainable is this? Like, there's a long way to go. It's going to come down to health. It's going to come down to health. It's going to come down to a lot of different things. I think the Dodgers, like you talk about, like pitching depth. Theirs is built to sustain more than the Padres is, but if the Padres can stay healthy, I don't know. They've got an edge to them this season. I think we've seen that with the style of play and with kind of their relentlessness on the bases and coming from behind, and then why not?
I think Jake Cronenworth in postgame yesterday, or in the clubhouse yesterday, just talked about knowing what their identity is after last season. And if you're a guy like Tatis, who last season got his first true taste of a real postseason, right? Of course, he was suspended for the Padres run in 2022 when they go to the NLCS. But if you were this current roster with those core guys, and you were that close, and you hear the Dodgers saying, "Oh, dude, that was a best team. They were better than us. Nobody wanted to face his team." How does that not weigh on you the entire offseason? I think the confidence factor is a real thing for the guys in that clubhouse.
Yeah, and I think the confidence factor could have gone a different way. It could have been a hangover from the way it ended. It could have been, and at least this was part of my fear before spring training, because the Dodgers did so much and the Padres didn't. That maybe you take the end of last season and it lingers, and then it became pretty clear when we got to spring training that it didn't. That they were kind of just squarely focused on what they had to accomplish in 2025, and that the roster, and this was kind of something that I think was true the entire offseason, like we were underselling the talent on the roster. Like they maybe didn't make the moves some fans wanted to fill out certain parts of that roster, but there's no denying how good so many of these players are, and so many important players. A big chunk of the core was coming back for this season, and there's been no hangover whatsoever.
And they've hit on that one guy. There's that one guy, right? You talk about the Peralta and Solano and the value that they had, and where would the Padres be without them? It seems like Gavin Sheets has kind of jumped into that role and become quite the fan favorite to this point.
Yeah, and he's perfect because that's what they needed. They needed a left-handed hitter. They needed a guy who could kind of mash in that DH spot, and he's been the guy they and like all the talent was there. Like you know what Gavin Sheets was. He can hit the ball a mile, and I think they tweaked a couple of things with his balance at the plate, and then I think also with his approach, and that was maybe more of a Gavin Sheets thing, and then the balance at the plate was a Padres thing. But the Padres essentially told Gavin Sheets, like, you're going to hit it out. You're going to hit the ball out of the ballpark. Like, let's see what you can do if you're working counts, if you're fouling balls off, if you're taking the hits as they come. And not only has he been good, he's fit into this Padres mold too, even though he's not the type of hitter that would fit into the mold. He's the kind of guy that will swing and miss and that will swing to hit the ball out, but he's also delivered some pretty crucial bloop singles. He's fought some tough at-bats, which I think has been what the Padres have appreciated the most.
I want to wrap up talking about just the vibe in Sacramento. By the way, I was watching last night, and you could hear those Padres fans coming in loud and oh my goodness, loud and clear on TV. But real quick, when you said that the topic of the Padres' best record was the topic in the clubhouse, was it the players or scoreboard watching on April 7th, or is it the media scoreboard watching on April 7th?
No. I mean, the players are scoreboard watching. This is another one. Don't let them tell you they're not.
Of course they are. Of course they are.
They also are not going to bring it up unprompted. And so we ask them about the NOS because it's a pretty major story right now. Like it never happened before where three teams had reached, I think it was 7-1, maybe it was 8-1. I guess the Padres weren't 8-1. So I think it was the first time ever three teams had been 7-1 in the same division, and only the second time it had happened in the same league. So like, I don't know, people care about baseball, people care about interesting stuff like that. And so it's our job to kind of go ask about it. And not a single person said, "Oh, I'm not paying attention." They all said, "Yeah, they're really good too." And I expect it's going to be a really fun summer because, like, I don't know what the Diamondbacks record is right now, but I think they're really good also. And everyone's talking about the Dodgers, Giants, and Padres, and like Arizona's good too. Like there are four teams in that division that could make the playoffs, and there are some guys in that Padres clubhouse that are happy about it. That say, you know what, bring on the challenge.
I would agree with that. And this is the one year. Actually, I wished it last year too. I mean, they don't play the Dodgers like June, right? This is the one year.
Yeah.
I wish you didn't have the balanced schedule. I'd much prefer. I think it's better for baseball, better for creating rivalries to have more games against your division foes. That's just.
I've always said split the difference. Like they used to be 19, now it's 13. Like how about 16? Play 16 games.
I'm good.
Yeah. 9 and 7, 9 at home, 7 away, 7 home, 9 away, alternate years. And that's just how I draw it up. But I spend a lot of time thinking about the schedule and what it should be because I spend a lot of time in different cities on the road.
You're very, very analytical. You have that time, and that's just how you are. All right, AJ. I forgot. I'm kicking myself. I wish I'd asked you to send me some pictures from Sacramento. What is that ballpark like? Intimate. We know intimate, small. What is it like being there?
Like it's a really nice AAA ballpark, which is what it is. It's not a big league ballpark, but it's a really nice AAA ballpark. The clubhouse is out in center field, and there are its challenges, but the clubhouse is fine. Like it's smaller, but it's fine. But it's it's AAA ballpark. I think the first weekend of the season when they're playing the Cubs, and that was their first that was their first series there. It sounds like there was a lot of media. There was a lot going on.
Right.
It seems to have settled. Okay. Yeah, it seems to have settled down for them now, and there's like the press box is kind of split in two because there was one minor league press box and now there's an extra one. So it's fine. You're going to deal with the challenges that you get, but like the vibe was good last night. Like you said, a lot of Padre fans. I think they helped make that vibe. And yeah, I expect it to be the same way tonight and tomorrow.
Okay, good deal. Real quick, I have a question from, let's see, Zemitram 177. How did the Spectrum appointment go? Thank you for asking. Now it's only conked out on me one time so far, so I think it was good. So fingers crossed. But I will update you guys. Shout out Doug from Spectrum from coming out here during the national championship game and having to go ahead and fix the Wi-Fi. AJ, I appreciate you. That was a lot of fun today. I'm expecting your next piece, which we can find at MLB.com, a full breakdown, the strength of schedule for every single team in the National League West.
Well, I guess when the Padres play the Rockies this weekend, their strength of schedule we'll see. They've struggled with the Rockies so many times in the past. If these Padres are different, maybe they'll beat the Rockies. That
was my low light turning point from last season when they got swept by the Rockies at Petco Park, and Mike Schultz, man, he was on the heat, he feet to the fire, and he was saying that we weren't outplayed. That feels like a lifetime ago, but don't ever overlook the last place Colorado Rockies ever, right?
good advice for the Padres because it's a challenge. It's always a challenge to play there, but yeah, it's a good point. Charlie Blackmon is no longer there. Maybe he's the one that always kind of killed the Padres. So maybe they'll maybe with him gone, the Padres will take care of business.
There's always that guy. AJ, enjoy it. I hope what is there a Sacramento beer recommendation? Are they famous for any beer, food, anything?
Can I get back to you tonight? I'll
yes.
I didn't go out last night, so I don't know yet for sure, but I'll report back.
Listen, it's a Tuesday night in Sacramento. Go crazy. Have a good one, AJ.
All right, thank you, Marty.
All right, thank you so much. All right, that was our friend AJ Cassavell from MLB.com, my press box buddy. You should go read his stuff. You can follow him on Twitter. I'm not sure if AJ's on Blue Sky yet, but if he is, I will keep you guys up to date. That's it today from Marty Time TV. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Yesterday, I did post an interview with the Manny Machado talking about why he wanted to get involved in SDFC, how when he signed with the Padres and Ron Fowler and Peter Seidler, he talked to them about wanting to invest back in the community, and so far he has, and it's been a great decision for Manny. Listen, both of his teams are off to a great start. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching Marty Time TV. I have more content coming here later on, and I do want to thanks Hamul for your sponsorship. Guys, have a great day. Go back to scoreboard watching, and we'll talk to you maybe tomorrow, but definitely on Thursday. Don't overlook those dreaded Colorado Rockies. Thanks for watching, guys. Talk to you soon.